Okay, welcome everyone. As Matt said, in this session we're going to focus primarily on Tools Plus and Report Studio. Report Studio is actually the Word add-in, and so we're going to talk a lot about templates and how to design templates using this Word add-in. Just a little more general overview of the software, how it works here. We have two versions of the software. FLIR Tools is a general purpose software for importing your images, analyzing your images, and creating reports. The reports created in FLIR Tools are not Word documents. They're just FLIR Tools templates, kind of self-contained templates. So you can't really customize those. FLIR Tools is freeware. You can download it from our support center website. Works with the majority of the cameras, the handheld cameras that we have. They all use JPEG images, so it's a very versatile tool. The limiting factor with those reports is that those templates are predefined, kind of canned templates. You have a few to choose from, but you can't really edit them. FLIR Tools Plus is the upgrade, and this basically adds three features. The word reporting that we're going to talk about today, panorama stitching, and sequence recording from compatible cameras. Several of the cameras can stream video, and Tools Plus can actually record that video. So these are the three plus features that you get. Now the new add-in, that we have is called Report Studio. So this is just the Word plugin, and there's a wizard associated with this. So we talk about Report Studio a lot, but it's really just part of Tools Plus. It's not a separate program. It's just all bundled together with Tools Plus. So there's two programs. FLIR Tools is the freeware. Tools Plus is the upgrade. That's all you have to worry about. And you don't have to reinstall anything. If you're using FLIR Tools and you want to upgrade, all you have to do is order a license code, enter that in, and it unlocks all the plus features. So it's one installation.
So maybe we'll get this question out of the way because we've got several of them. And Apple compatibility.
No.
What happened with it? Just
it was discontinued. We don't have any Mac OS compatibility at the moment. So Windows only. And if you go to Plus, there's some Office requirements. You have to have Office 2010, 2013, and 2016. Okay. Now, the Report Studio add-in replaces the legacy Word add-in that we had for FLIR Reporter and FLIR Tools Plus version 5. So we've been using the same add-in for many years. So if you have had Reporter or Tools Plus 5, you've been using the old add-in, the old Tools Plus add-in. Now, what's the reason for the new add-in? Well, there are two main reasons why it was developed. One is to overcome Office compatibility issues. The old add-in was a COM add-in. It used some old code, so we were running into compatibility issues, particularly with 64-bit Office. It was just not compatible, and that was becoming a real problem for us. So this new add-in is fully compatible with 64-bit Office, so no issues there. The other problem we're having with the old add-in had to do with the size of the reports. 10 years ago, this wasn't such an issue. The images were very small. Nowadays, the images are much larger, and the old add-in really was having a hard time processing all those images and making a decent-sized report. So that problem is solved also with the new add-in. So you can make reports with hundreds of images. I've done it, and it works really well. And it's surprisingly fast considering how much data you're pushing through that wizard. So these are the two main advantages over the old add-in. Now the downside is that the old templates cannot be used with the new add-in. They're completely different code, totally incompatible. So you can't just take the old template and drop it into the new version. You have to make a new template. But it is a free upgrade if you're an existing customer. It's the same license code. You just can't have them both on the same PC at the same time because the add-ins they'll clash. If you're considering changing over, you could install it on a different PC maybe just to kind of get used to it, get your template going, and then move it over to your main PC when you're ready to go. So, alrighty. quick overview for what I'm going to try to cover today. I'm not sure if we'll get to everything, but we're going to try to touch on all these topics here. I'm going to start in Word. We're just going to make a new template from scratch with some basic features, let's say. So we're going to add an IR image, a photo, and an IR table to the data page. So this is pretty common. We'll add a cover page and a summary page, also fairly common. We see this in a lot of reports. And we're going to save the template. And then from FLIR Tools, I'll show you how to create a report from the library with that new template. Okay. And then we'll also run through the Report Studio wizard. So there's actually two ways you can go about this. If you like the FLIR Tools user interface and you like to start there, you can still do that like we were doing before. You now have the option, however, to use the Report Wizard, which is a separate kind of program that allows you to pick the template, load the images, and make the report. Very similar to the old Reporter Wizard that we had years ago. So if you're kind of comfortable with that, then the wizard might be a better approach for you. It's totally up to you which method you want to use.
I'm just going to mute the webcam here just for now because Jason's going to focus on his computer and then go through the software. So you're going to see it say pause here at the top of the screen, but the PowerPoint or his desktop should be right below us here on the main screen. So you should still see that view here of Microsoft Word.
Yep.
And Jason's going to go through the various features here of the software.
Okay. So this is where I'm going to start today. And this is just a Word document, just a blank Word document. The difference is that with Tools Plus, you have this extra tab. This is the add-in, the Word add-in, with the unique template design features that we have. So again, if you've used the old add-in, similar concept. You have a new tab there. This one says FLIR. The old one said Tools Plus or Reporter. So now, anytime you create a new template, you have to start here with this Create New Template button. Now, this is different from the old way we did things. With the old software, you could just start dropping things on the page, save the template, you're good to go. That doesn't work anymore. You have to start here with this Create New Template. You can either create a new template, completely new, or you can create from an existing template. And this will go and allow you to open a different template, and then you can make changes to it. Okay. So for today, I'm going to create a new template from here. And so this creates all the page layout and adds the sections. This task pane should always be showing if you're creating a new template or editing an existing template. So these templates are divided into three different sections. All right, the first section is the intro section, which would be for your cover page, your company name, thermographer name, anything like that would go on your cover page. You can have more than one page per section. So for instance, your intro section could have 3 pages. As long as it's part of that section, it doesn't really matter. Okay. The final page is very similar in concept to the intro. It's everything after your images at the end, your conclusions, diagnosis, report summary, etc. So that the summary table can go in either spot, intro or final. So you don't have to have either of those. The data section is the one section that you need. That has the thermal image, the photo, and tables, and that's the page that gets duplicated. So if you add 10 images to a report, you'll get 10 data pages. One intro section, one final section. So I'm going to start here. We'll start building up the data page. Now, it's important to remember, too, that a lot of this is just Word. Inserting tables, formatting pages, etc. We have a couple of unique objects that we use to handle the automation, but a lot of the template design is just using Microsoft Word. And there's a couple of techniques that I like, particularly when it comes to page layout. I like to set the margins right up front. So if you have a certain margin setting that you like, it's a lot easier to set things like this in the layout, whether you want horizontal, or portrait or landscape. Set it up at this point before you start adding objects to the page. So I'm going to use the smaller margins. It gives you a little more page space. Another thing that I like to do is to use word tables to create columns. So if you want to put an IR and a photo side by side, what I'll usually do is just insert a single row table. And this keeps things separate and lined up. Instead of trying to put everything in line, it gets a little mixed up sometimes. You don't need the borders either. I can turn off that. So I'll say no border. And on this column, go back to FLIR. I want to put the thermal image in that first cell. Put the photo right here. All right. So I could save this template and use it, and it'll work just fine. There's no data, but it will automate it and create all your pages for you. Now, at this point here, you might want to resize or reposition these. Now, one weird thing about this, in the way these work, is that you can't just click and drag like we used to. All right, nothing happens. You have to sort of unlock it to make it changeable, to be able to change the size, right? So you have to right-click on the object, go down to resize on this menu, and now see how you can drag it. As soon as you click off it, it will go back to the locked kind of mode. So same applies to the photo. We're going to right click, resize, and then we can drag it out. Also, while unlocked like that, you can change the paragraph positioning. So if you want to sort of center it, right justify it, if I go to the photo, I can resize, and then I can pick this to push it over to the side to kind of have them separate. So that's the placeholder for the thermal and the photo. Now, the next thing you probably want to do is put a table here to show some image information. So we have a special type of table that links up to the thermal image here, and it's on the FLIR tab. There's actually two different ways you can show information on the IR page. The table will group information into one predefined table that you can create. The field is just a single cell value that you can just put anywhere. You can put the file name or any image parameter by itself on the page. So I'm going to start with the table. So if we click this arrow, there are several different menu choices here. These are all predefined tables containing only measurements and parameters and meter link. So if I click camera info here, it's going to come up with this table preview with all of this information here. Okay. And if you click OK, it's going to add a table with all that data. So it's just, they're just kind of predefined tables. And then I can right click and delete. Right. So you can certainly use these, or you can create your own custom table that contains a combination of these different values. And so instead of using these, I'm going to do that. I'm going to create my own table, and that's what this top menu is for. So we go to Table, and then go to Create. And now you can create a brand new table with just what you want to show. And the nice thing about this is that you can save it and reuse it. So I am going to first give it a name. I'm going to call it whatever, my table, right up here. And now I can go through these groups and decide what I want to put into this table.
So as we're here, Mike is asking on the data page, he'd like to show the spot number 1, box, max, and min on a single line. How when he adds these values, he only gets one value displayed, it sounds like, or one value per line. It takes up a lot of the page is what he's saying.
Well, I would probably, instead of using these tables, just use the field. Lay it out with the field. Do like a 4-column table, and then just use the field function right up here and pick, the spot, the area, whatever you want to show. So that would be a good reason actually to use the field. It gives you more versatility with stuff like that. These tables are always 2 columns. They're meant to be, there's good and bad to everything. They're very easy to configure, but they're a bit limited in certain ways. So, yeah. Now from here, I can. I'm just going to pick a few things here to show. So file info, pretty much just general information about the image itself. So for instance, date and time, I can add that to the table. It's going to put it down the preview. So if I click the plus, it just adds it down here. So we have file info, parameters, things like emissivity, can add that, reflected temperature. Have camera info like camera model, lens, serial number, notes, text annotations, mirror link data. So there's a lot of information that you can show about these images. So there's your measurement spots, lines, areas. So we could say area max, delta T, temperature rise, alarms, formulas. So there's a whole list of properties that you can add to these tables. And you can have more than one table. So I'm just going to start with this one table here. So I've added all my parameters. You can pick any of these rows and change the order. So you can move up or move down over here. So if you wanted, let's say, the serial number to be closer to the top, we pick that row and we can move that up and put it first or second or whatever. So you can pretty easily rearrange those. So this looks pretty good, so I'm going to click OK. And I used that name already. Let's try my table 2. There we go. I already had one of that name. All right, so this is the one I just made. So we can see it there. So now, if I'm happy with that, just click OK. And there you go. Now, these, once they're on the page, they behave a lot like Word tables. So if you want to format it, for instance, add some borders, maybe some color, we can select it. Oops. We select it here like that. And then it shows the table tools up here where you can pick the design tab. And then you can use any of these pre-formatted table designs to add borders, background color. It's completely up to you how you want to set this up. If you right-click on it, you'll actually get Word's table menu. So you can put shading and do all kinds of things from a formatting standpoint. Another thing you can do, which we could not do in the old add-in, like the old add-in, the tables were kind of fragile. You couldn't really do a whole lot to them. But with this, like if you don't like the way this is displayed, I can just say, I don't want that word there. I just want to have it say date and time. It'll work okay as long as you don't change the field that it's linked to on the right. So this is where it's going to put the actual parameter from the image. The label, you can edit it. It's not that big of a deal. You can also delete rows. If you add it and you decide that you don't really care about the serial number, we can highlight that row and just delete that row.
But a question just came in about aligning tables. When they were creating a template, the tables would not come out aligned the way they wanted. Is there a way to realign those? Just move them around in Word? Or
That's all just Word, really.
just wrapping?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by aligned, I guess.
Probably just, I would either vertically or horizontally, maybe not lined up the way they wanted them. But
yeah.
It's a regular Word template, though, right?
Exactly, that's the thing. Yeah, it's really just a Word formatting thing. If you're trying to put tables like side by side or like one on top of the other, I would probably use an embedded table. So, if you're trying to get things separate and lined up, kind of like what I did with the thermal and the photo, insert the table within a table. And then you have the columns set up, and one table's here, one table's on the left, on the right, kind of thing. That might help. The one thing you can't do once they're on the page is really add to them. Like I can't add rows at this point. So what I could do, if I wanted to change what's showing, I could delete this, delete it from the page, like that. It's saved like before because when I created it, I saved it. So I can go back to FLIR, I can go back to table, I can go to table again, and I can edit this. So if I want to add one value to it, I can edit it, find the item that I want to add, like that, just add to it, hit OK. Now I can reinsert it. So now I get the same table with that extra item. So put a border around that. And I mentioned that you can have more than one table. Say you wanted to add a table that just has text information. Just go right back here, go to table, go to create. Say we can add just notes and annotations. Call it text, like that. Say OK. OK. And now I have a dedicated table just for text. So you can see it's pretty open-ended as far as how you want to lay this out and what information you want to include in these tables. The question about having the row with the 4 columns, I mentioned the field. I would probably use this in that type of situation. So we could, I could do a quick demo here of that. So for instance, I would probably add like a 4-column table like that, and say in column 1, I want to insert field like this, and then say I only want a certain parameter in that field. Now, in order to add measurement functions, they don't show up here. I would have to insert an image into the template, which you can do if you want to really get specific and say I want to only show like spot 1, here, area 1 here. In the tables, you can just say to show all the spots, and it handles that. But to get that specific, you would have to double-click on the FLIR box and then insert an image. Okay, and this image actually has text in it, so it puts it into the template. And then you can, if there's any measurement functions on the image, you can link to them in the table. So I don't think this one has it, but let me double click here. So to edit the image, this is the same in the report. So we're kind of touching a bit on the report stuff. You can double click on these and add spot meters. This is a lot like FLIR Tools. Should look familiar. So I can add a couple spots to the template image. Now that they're there, I can insert a field, and you'll notice that now I have spot meters, and I can pick spot 1. I can put it right there. All right. So one reason why you might want to consider the field if you really want to get things that specific. And this is certainly an option, inserting the image into the template. If you again want to get more specific about it, you can certainly do that. Alrighty. Okay, so we talked about the table. We talked about the field on the data page. So now I'm going to move to the intro section. There's a couple things I want to do here. I want to add, this is, again, just for general information, so I'm going to just say my report, really interesting, cover title here. And then one nice feature here that you can take advantage of on the cover page, particularly if you're doing jobs for different clients, is the report properties. So again, going back to the FLIR tab, the report properties are predefined labels that you can create that are not image specific necessarily, but more report specific. And so these will pop up every time you make the report and prompt you to enter in the values that are appropriate. So you could add a field here, report property field, and say client name or job name or something like that to show, to add the person that you're doing the scan for instance. Okay.
Question about, I'm sorry, asking, yeah. Can they create a parameter and then insert it into a table?
Well, when you insert these, they'll essentially go inside a table. Yeah, yep. Yeah, I'm just kind of setting up the labels right now. But yeah, we can add multiple rows here. So I can say client name. We can say maybe, I don't know, inspection date. Something like that. Thermographer. So anything that you might want to put onto a cover page that might be different in each report, you can think about that for these report properties. And you can change the order. So if you want to put that at the top, it's a lot like the IR table where you have these arrows where you can change the order. Move down or up. And by default, all three of these are selected. So if I click OK now, I'm going to get a table with all three items. You don't have to have all three in one table. That's an option. So if you uncheck, say, have just these two and click OK, that's what you'll get. Okay. But the main advantage of this versus just typing them in is really only that it prompts you each time, so it gives a sort of workflow where you don't forget, I guess. When you do the report at the end, it's like, oh, type that information in, it populates the report automatically for you, which we'll see that once we make this report. Okay. Do some borders here. There we go. So another thing, so in the intro section, you can use these report properties on your cover page. You can also use the summary table in an intro or a final section. So actually, let me put that into the final so we can see that down here. Okay, so if I go back to FLIR, the FLIR tab, earlier we were talking about just this first section here with these tables. These are grayed out because we're not on a data page, so I can't use any of these on the data or the intro. So the only thing that I can really use here is the summary table at the very end. And so I can link this up to any image parameter, and it will basically add a column for that parameter in the summary table. And so this list here is based on some of the information that you're already showing in the report. So it reads what you're showing on the data page and says, you know, are these things that you might want to show, basically. So if that's all you need, it's all right there. So I could show the, you know, so the serial number, emissivity, page number. So I'm going to choose page number because I want to have that in my first column. But then I want to pick a few different things. So I'm going to go to add. And now this gives you the full list of items. So I could show, let's see, how about spot meter? Let's say spot 1. Okay. I was already there. Yeah, that's okay. Maybe area. Maximum, that's something you might want to summarize on. Maybe a text annotation, equipment ID, something like that. So for text annotations, we can add an entry here and say if you want to summarize on your equipment name, you just have to make sure that you type that exactly as it's shown in your text annotation file that you're using. All right, so that label has to match if you want to use that. Okay. And so you can click add and you can pick any number of items here that you want in your table. And then you can arrange them. So I can move this up. So it's going to put them in the order that you see them here. So this basically represents the order of the columns. So this is the first column, second column, third column, fourth column. So if I click OK, that's what we get. Okay. Now, an interesting thing here is that the equipment and the spot meter column actually have values in them. The reason for that is that there's an image here in this template. If this was just a blank placeholder, you'd see the 4 columns, but they wouldn't actually be populated with any real values. Okay, so we've created in a relatively short amount of time here a 3 section template with a cover page, an IR page, and a summary page. So I'm going to save this template. Just go to Save As in Word. And I'm going to put it, where should we put it? I'm going to make a new folder. We'll call it Webinar. And we'll put it right in here. And I will call it, how about new template? Okay, so make note of where you put these. I would recommend, if you're doing custom templates, make a custom template folder that's easy to find. Right in my documents or off the desktop maybe. Don't put it on the desktop. I wouldn't do that. I'd probably just make a folder so they're more organized. You know, they're all in one spot. And just kind of keep in mind where those are. And so I just made a brand new folder for this one. It's in my documents. So I'm going to hit save. And you have to make sure when you do this, you do save as, and you choose Word template. Make sure that Word template's picked and not document. It's got to be a Word template, DOTX. All right, so now I'm going to close out Word. I've saved my template. Yeah, save it again, I guess. Okay, close out Word. All right, so now the next step is to create a report. And so there's two ways to do this. I'm going to start from FLIR Tools. We'll do it this way, then we'll run through the wizard.
Well, that's loading up. A question came in from Andrew about formulas. How do you create formulas within the report, I guess? Or how do you insert a formula into the report?
The formulas are created in Word on that FLIR ribbon, that FLIR tab. There's a button specifically for formulas. So you can click there, you can build your formula, and then you would insert it as a field onto the page. So once it's made, it goes into that list of parameters that you would see in your data table or your field list. So it's just a matter of creating it first, and then you can link it up.
William was asking about the Word file that you were just working with.
Yeah.
That was just one of the basic templates, right? That's included, or was that something that you created?
No, that was from scratch.
From scratch?
Yeah, I built that up from a blank page.
Because he was asking if you could get a copy of that particular file. Do we have like a sample Word file that we could send out?
Well, I can
get something started.
There's actually several that come with it, with the software. I'll show you in a second. Let me run through this real quick. When we get into the wizard, you'll see right away on that first step there's a bunch of sample templates you can kind of start with. So let me do this real quick here. I don't want to run out of time. So this is FLIR Tools. You're probably familiar with this. Tools Plus is activated, so we have the panorama option. It says Tools Plus up here. So I can create a report with my new template from here. But before you do that, you have to go to Options and go to Report. So on that Options menu right up here in the upper right, there's a tab for Report. And you have to set the user template path. So you have to tell FLIR Tools where to look for your template. That's why I made a special folder for it. So I know where it is, and I can go to here and click Browse, and I can tell it exactly where to look. So it's under Documents, and I made a folder called Webinar for my template. Okay, so once that's set, you only have to really set that once if you use the same folder for all your templates. Okay, so you can see that there. Hit OK. So now I can pick the images that I want from the library. Just pick a couple of these. I can pull this down. See, my new template's right there, along with all the sample templates. And that shows up, like I said, because I set that path under Options. So if you're working and you don't see your template, double check that, because it's very possible that it might not be set to the right folder. So now I have my images selected, so I can pull this down and click on the template. And it's going to ask me where I want to save it. I'll just put it up here. And it's going to start to process it. And it should come up at the end here with my report properties right before it goes into Word. Yep. So there's those three properties I put onto the cover page. So I can put, oops, there's one thing to be careful of. If you use tab here, make sure you tab twice to get into the value column, because you can change all of these. Okay. And then click OK. All right, so there's page one. There's my values that I put in for my report properties. And there's the first IR page, second, third, and there, little further down, there's my summary table. So a lot of these are blank because the first few don't have any equipment field. These don't have any temperature parameters at all, or temperature measurement tools. So not a big deal. The great thing about these reports is that these images are completely editable from inside the document. And the way that I inserted the image in the template, it's the exact same process in the report if you want to edit this image. You don't have to recreate the report. I can double click and it brings up an editor from within Word that looks a lot like FLIR Tools. So your measurement functions are over here. So I can add a spot. I can add a box. I can change the palette. Oh, that's not a very good one, is it? How about that? I can change the scale. Now this is a little different. Like in FLIR Tools, it's down at the bottom. In this editor, it's on the side. Just slide it up or down. I can auto adjust, change my parameters, and so on. You can even add text annotations from here. So if you want to show an equipment item field here, I can just go to plus. I can say like that, and it's a cup. Click Save. So now when you save, it updates everything on the page. So now I can see in my text table down here, it says equipment, shows the value. I can see spot 1, box, max temperature. And then if we go down to here, all the way at the bottom, it updates the summary table automatically. Now, if you've used the old add-in, the summary tables were a little bit frustrating because sometimes they didn't update right, or you had to reinsert them. And we had a lot of issues with that. And it wouldn't update in real time, even if it was working properly. You'd have to always refresh it or save and reopen. So this updates in real time. So if you change something on a page, it updates in the summary table. Okay. The formula manager is right up here. We had that question a little bit earlier. So if you want to create a formula, there's a special function there for it. So we hit that. We can go to create, and then you can add.
Thomas was just asking about if we could just do a simple formula just to sort of show him.
Yeah, go to expression and go. So if you want to link up to a temperature parameter, you have to go to field right here. And that brings up the whole list of image parameters. So basically, this is like almost identical to what you see with when you insert a table or a field. So it essentially exposes all those camera parameters. So if we hit field right here, and then go to like spot meter, if you want to put that into a formula, say spot temperature, and then you can say minus, and then go back to field and say area maximum or something like that. So really to access any of the IR specific parameters, you go to field, and you can put in all your own math calculations and do whatever you want kind of around those parameters. We go to OK. So there, I just called it formula. Click OK again. So now it's created. To show it, I'll put it in this column right here. So I have my spot that I added in the template. I'm going to put the formula right in here. I can go to field. Because we're in the report, I have to tell it what image to link to. So I'm on that page. So I'm going to pick that image. And we go down to formulas. There's my formula. And click OK. Okay. So this exact process that I did, you can do in the template. It's the exact same process. Build the formula. And link it up to a field to show it on the page. Okay, so now before it gets too late here, I want to run through the report wizard because I think it's important to show that because that's definitely new, but particularly for those who've been using the Tools Plus 5 for a while. We didn't have the wizard. So the report wizard is right on the desktop here. So when you install it, you'll get FLIR Tools and you'll get what we call Report Studio, which is basically just the wizard. So this gives you another method to create the reports. And we had the question about the sample templates earlier. And I wanted to wait until now because this shows them really well. These are all, for the most part, there might be an extra one or two here, the sample templates that come with Report Studio. So you get a pretty good set of templates to start out with. And if you wanted to edit one of these, like if you like this layout and you just want to add a few things to it, you can right click and you can go to edit right from here. And it will do just that. It will open that template in Word. And then you can make your changes. You just save it with a different file name, and now you've got a new template to work with. So you don't necessarily have to start from a blank page. You can always start from one of these if you like the basic layout of the page. So again, that was on the right click if you want to edit one of these. But see, I don't see my template here because I haven't added it to this list. So I can either import the template. So there's two buttons down here. This is not totally obvious what the reason is here, but import will put it in this list with all the thumbnails. Browse just lets you pick the template, but it won't put it in this list. So functionally, the report is still created. It's just two different options, I guess. So I'm going to go to import template, and it's going to make a copy of it, and it's going to put it right in this list. It says updating previews. This might take a minute. It's going to build a template preview for it. And hopefully we'll see it here in a second. And I don't see it. Yeah, they're missing it. Or it didn't. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, this is something I didn't really talk about. These are categories that you can create when you design your template. These all have category names. So I was clicking here, but I forgot I didn't add a category for my template, so I had to go to all templates to find it. There it is there. So, okay, and there's my cover page, my R page, and my summary. All right, so I have the template picked. Next step, go to next. It's going to bring us to the section where we can add the images. So again, going back to the old reporter wizard, if anybody remembers that, this looks very, very similar. And the idea is exactly the same. This is where you would move your images over and arrange the pages. So I can, if I want to add all these, you can select them all, or you can go add all images. So there's a special button right down here. It's kind of small, but there's a little plus icon on it. If you point to it, it said add all images to the report. And so if you have 100 images in that folder, just click one button and it's going to move them all over to the right. And the right-hand side represents the pages in your report. And the nice thing about this versus the tools library is that you can set the page order. You can't do that really from FLIR Tools. It's just going to put them in the order that it thinks they should be in. But if you want this image to be at the top, you can move these up and down like that. There's no photo with this one, that's why that's blank. But all these have the embedded photo. And then you can pick, images from other locations.
Are the page numbers built into the template automatically? They're generated. Andrew was asking about that.
Generated.
Like meaning, I think if I understand correctly, like in Word, you can put a page number in the footer. Will these automatically put the page numbers in? I'm assuming.
There's actually an image field for it. I put that into the table, I think. We'll check that when we get into the report. But there is a field for it in our data format for page number. Yeah. You could also use Word too. You could use Word's fields for it. Yep. The main reason why we have it in our object is to facilitate the summary table function, so you can put it in the summary table. All right, so you can arrange the pages with these buttons, move up, move down. You can delete a page here. So if you decide you don't want this one, you just click that. This will delete all, so you can start over. Now, another neat thing here that we didn't have with the old wizard is that you can edit these images in the wizard before the report's made. So you really don't need to use FLIR Tools at all if you don't want to. Because if you want to change something on this image, we can double click, just like we do in the Word document. And guess what? We have the image editor, just like in the document. So I can draw a box. Maybe if you want that, we can change the palette just to make it look different. Like, hit save. And there we go. That updates it right there. So you just double click on any of these and you can edit them. Another thing too that I probably should mention under options, right up here. And you would only need to worry about this for the legacy cameras. Like if you have a P65 or any image that doesn't automatically group, those are kind of old cameras. We have a lot of them out there. This check mark will tell it to automatically associate the separate photo with the thermal image. This was a problem for us with FLIR Tools because you had to go and manually group them together. It was a bit tedious. But this is solved here with just this one check mark. I think it's by default, but check that if you have an older camera and you're trying to use this. Make sure that's checked. And then effectively it will find the matching photo and put it in the wizard for you, and it'll look just like this. So, all right. Okay. I think we're ready to go. So now if I click generate, we get the report properties just like with FLIR Tools. Just do this once more. A couple of parameters here, like that. Okay. And save the report. See, the workflow here is kind of opposite to what we were doing for a while with the old add-in. Like with this add-in, you have to save the report first, and then it opens Word. And that's why it asks you for the file name right away, because it saves it and then opens Word. With the old add-in, it would build the report in memory, and then you had to save it to disk. So it's just a different approach. And there we go. Now another thing too, if you're again kind of going back to the older add-in, if you've been working with that for a while, you could in-place edit the images with the old add-in. Like I could just move a box around like this. You can't do that here. You have to double click on the image to open the editor. And the reason for that has a lot to do with trying to reduce the report size as much as possible. It actually calls an external program when you double click here and it opens it instead of having all that embedded into each page. That's what made those reports really, really large. It was just how it handled that editing. So yeah, it's an extra step, but you can make much larger reports a lot more efficiently this way. So, how we doing here? All right. We went over a lot.
Well, I
think we could probably call it a day. We can take some questions.
All right.
I should probably mention the YouTube channel too.
Yeah, let's do that also. Let me just take control back for one moment, and we'll just have some concluding slides as we wrap up here. If you want to send your questions in right now, that's fine. We'll try to get to as many of these as we can. I just want to share with you a few items of interest. Going forward, we just wrapped up Gary and myself and several of the other instructors going through the papers that were submitted for Information 2018. We're going to be in Austin, Texas this coming September, the 11th to the 14th. Buildings, roofs, electrical, mechanical, optical gas imaging, aerial infrared, and a lot more. Head to information.org where you can sign up. Still have some nice early bird registration specials that are available there. September 11th to the 14th at the Hilton in downtown Austin, right off of 6th Street. It's going to be a great time. What a great location. I can't wait. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
Reminiscent of Nashville in some ways, but
I think so, yeah. Yeah, we will be doing a clinic on Tools and Tools Plus, at least one on each. So.
And then I mentioned we are recording today's session, so it's available for playback at a later date. Have that ready by Monday or Tuesday, and then you'll be getting a confirmation email when we've posted that. For anybody who's registered or actually attended, we'll be sending that out there probably late next week, maybe early the following week. So that's available at infraredtraining.com/webinars. And then finally, some of the help resources that Jason had just alluded to. There's the support site with FLIR. All right, that's available, support.flir.com, and that's our main area where there's an FAQ and then all the camera specs and everything, right?
Yeah, and you can ask questions here. It's a global system, so depending on what region you're in, it will assign the question to a regional specialist who's a little closer to your time zone. They might speak your language, so it's more localized that way. So it's a good resource. If you have any kind of tech support questions, we try to get back to you within a day, day or two. In the U.S., they come to me and Andrew, who's my helper here in the office. But we have agents all over the world.
And then let's see, finally, on-demand training. We've got our website. We've got some learning modules that are available on the various FLIR cameras. There's also stuff related to FLIR Tools. Jason mentioned the YouTube channel, the online training, the on-demand training there, irtraining.com. There's our YouTube link again.
Yep.
And then finally, if you want to get in touch with either Jason or myself directly, here's our email addresses for you, matt.schwegler@infraredtraining.com and then jason.gagnon@flir.com. Let me leave that up there for a moment. And while I'm doing that, I'll have to give you control back. But Mike had asked earlier, on the intro page, I'll give you a second to get set up. It's how do you not show the name, and he has it sort of in quotes, the name, just the value. I guess the label says name, like a default sort of generic label called name. Is there a way to get rid of that? Do you just delete it? Because he just wants to show the value.
No, you just delete it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of the nice thing about the way these work in this version is that if you don't want that label, you can just delete it. It won't harm anything, really.
Make your presenter there again.
I can probably just bring up that. Am I?
Yeah, you're back on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We can just jump back into Word here and open my template. I assume he's probably referring to like this column here where it shows the label. You could just delete it.
Okay, so it's really, you can customize it to whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, no big deal.
Back in the software in FLIR Tools, John was asking about just a quick demo on the Delta T function, if you could show that. And I mentioned that we've got 2 other webinars, by the way.
Yeah.
If you want more on the basics of how do you do the basic image analysis here, changing color palettes, setting a spot meter, doing the object parameters and all of that, there's, I believe, 2 on-demand webinars, possibly a third. One is how to create a report with FLIR Tools. That's available. And the other should be the basics of FLIR Tools. Both of those are in our on-demand webinar section at infraredtraining.com/webinars.
We have one on text annotations too
that
we probably should do again. But that's a kind of a neat underutilized feature. Oh, darn it. There we go. The text annotations allows you to create like pull-down menu lists that you can access in FLIR Tools and in the cameras. So if you're doing like routine inspections where you look at a certain number of equipment items, you can program them all in to a text annotation template. And one of those recorded webinars we have kind of goes over that process.
So Bill was asking that, can text annotations be added to the summary table?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I actually did that in my template.
Okay.
Let me finish the
I finished that
Delta
one, but we'll come to that,
T,
Bill. Yep.
Jump back to that. As far as the Delta T and FLIR tools, the first thing you have to do is lay out your functions, your measurement functions. So they're all accessible over here. So I just added a spot meter and an area, like that. You can position them. And then to do the Delta T, it's this tool here, this triangle delta function if you point to it. We can click on that, and then it adds a row over to the measurements table. So we have SP1, BX1, and then DT1 for the Delta T. And then I can configure that with this gear button to use either a fixed reference temperature that you can type in, or I can pick box 1 max and spot 1 like that. And then the result is shown right in the table. You can have more than one, so if you have 2 spots, let's say, like that, I can add another Delta T. I can configure that one to be box max minus SP2. So it's pretty easy to set up. And then any changes you make here will move over. You know, when you build a report, it takes all those changes over to the final report. What was the other question?
We're coming. Bill was, I think, the text annotations.
Yeah. Let me jump back to the template. I added annotations to this template. I actually added an equipment label here. And so that will read that value if it exists on the page when you create the report. So if that image has that label and that value in it, it populates that row in the report. And I don't know if I saved. I did. Okay. So this is the report that we made, I think. Yeah. So if we go down to the final page, you can see how several of these have that because they were in the image when we made the report. A lot of them don't. But it's not that big of a deal. Like if you wanted to add it to this image, like on page 6, we can just go up to the image. Page 6, yep. So I can double click, and then I can add it over here, add a row, and we can call it, as long as it matches, probably not really applicable to the house, but you get the idea. We can call it equipment and call it house or roof or whatever. By adding it here, it's going to put it into the image object. And as long as that label matches, I save it and then close. It's going to update this table right here and the summary table right here. So it's all linked to that one field. So if the text annotations is something you use in your camera, then you can set up your labels ahead of time in the template, set up your summary table to summarize on what you want, and then if it sees that data in the thermal image, it just puts it right into the table. So it can save you a lot of time by pre-defining that stuff as much as you can.
Guillermo was asking about, can you add a temperature profile to the report?
Yes. Glad you mentioned that, because that is actually new to the 6.4 version of FLIR Tools. There's a profile button right here. So if you don't have this, update your software and then it will put it in. It's a relatively recent improvement. So this profile links up to a line on the thermal image. And actually, which page am I on? Let's go to a more interesting. Yeah, why don't we do that one? So I have to come up to the image, double click, and then add this line function to the image. We save it. And why don't we I'll add 2. There you go. And this works a lot like the thermal image, like you can't resize it very easily. So you have to right click and resize if you want to stretch it out. It's a weird thing about these some of these objects where you can't just stretch them out. So, but yeah.
Andre was asking, when I drag both images, they appear separately on each row and not together in one row. And is there, I guess, Andre, if you want to clarify on that, or
I'm not sure about that. It might be something to do with your template.
Okay.
Or if they're separate, like IR and a photo that are separate, they might not be grouped together. I'm not sure.
What Andre's asking, I'm sorry, it's Andre. It's Andrews. Andre and Andrew. Sorry, you guys are right next to each other in the queue. Andre is asking, are you planning on doing a webinar on formulas and maybe just conditional templates? That could be
perhaps
something we could do.
Yeah.
Okay.
We may either do a webinar, or I plan on doing a recording, like a YouTube on it at some point. But yeah, we could definitely do that.
Julio has FLIR Report Professional. Is this, I guess, Julio, do you have Reporter? FLIR Reporter? If you have FLIR, the old reporters, you can upgrade, right?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
That's another thing that you would do at the support center. I can bring that up real quick. Right over in this benefits program section right here. So this is the customer help center. If you go enter now, it will bring up another page where you can put in your license code, and then it will output a Tools Plus code. So it's totally free. You just put in either your Tools Plus file, or actually no, you can use the same code. So for any version of Tools Plus, you can use the same code. For Reporter, you can upgrade from the benefits program.
Okay.
As long as you have your license code, yeah. Yep.
Mike, I just sent you a quick text back. I'm gonna have you email Jason directly about the questions regarding the, excuse me, the name and the fields and the values and all that, but maybe just you guys can chat offline. Okay. It might be better.
Okay.
One last question here. Rosario is asking about, I guess, a polygon option. It's been requested a couple times. Do we have polygon options?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Polygon and bendable line will come at some point in the future. We don't have it quite yet.
All right. Yeah. Good. And so we got the YouTube videos that are available there, right?
Yep.
We've got our webinars, our on-demand webinars that are available, which you guys can watch at any time. Let me just share this once more for those of you that want our email address. It's matt.schwegler@FLIR.com, and Jason, or Infrared Training, either one works, matt.schwegler@FLIR or at infraredtraining.com, jason.gagnon@FLIR.com. You can email Jason directly. All right, great. We'll wrap it up.
All
right, folks, thanks for joining us. Like I said, we'll have the tutorial here in the next week or so. If you want to email me directly, I'll have that a link for it available probably by Monday or Tuesday at the latest. So if you don't want to wait and you want to see this as soon as you can, rewatch it, just send me an email and I can get that out to you here early next week. I just have to do a little bit of editing and just kind of see how the recording came out. If you want the other topics, go to infraredtraining.com/webinars, where all of our on-demand tutorials are listed. We've got some new live dates coming up that I'll be posting here very soon. We'll get those scheduled here for the second quarter. It'll include some information preview items. So we're getting ready for the conference here coming up in September. A lot of great topics, a lot of great presentations that we just looked at that will be part of the program this year. So definitely save the date on information. You don't want to miss it. It is a one-of-a-kind event, the largest in the world. It's really a conference for all thermographers who want to learn more about how to get the most out of their investment in the technology. Go to information.org, sign up, and learn more. All right, for Jason Gagnon, I'm Matt Schwegler here with the Infrared Training Center. Thanks for joining us for today's live tutorial on Report Studio and FLIR Tools Plus. We'll see you online again very soon. Have a great weekend.